How did you meet George Bush?
I met President Bush first when I was working for Bill Steiger in the Congress in 1969, and he was then a young Republican congressman from Texas. Our paths crossed many times over the years. During the Ford administration, the same night that I was promoted to be White House Chief of Staff, he became the director of the CIA for President Ford. And so we'd known each other for many years and had an established relationship before he asked me to become Secretary of Defense.
The personal relationship?
Professional, primarily.
So he becomes president. Why were you on the list to become Secretary of Defense?
I don't know. You'd have to ask him that question. Of course, what happened was that John Tower was the nominee originally, and he was rejected by the Senate. And on the day that he was rejected, I was invited down to the White House for a conversation first with Brent Scowcroft, President Bush's national security advisor, John Sununu, the then Chief of Staff. And they wanted to know if I was interested. I indicated I was, and the next day I went down and met with the President, had a long talk with him, and at that point we closed the deal, and that afternoon he announced my nomination.
What made you interested in the job? I mean, you had no particular background in defense, did you?
No, well, to a limited extent. I'd served on the House Intelligence Committee for several years, and a very significant part of what the intelligence community does involves the Defense Department, and is actually part of the Defense Department. So there was a piece of it that I'd worked with over the years. I'd also had the opportunity as Chief of Staff to be involved in national security issues when I worked for President Ford, and had an interest in the subject, and the Defense Department's obviously it is the biggest department and one of the most important assignments in the government. When the President asked me to take it on, the choice for me was whether I wanted to serve 4 more years in the House or whether I wanted to go downtown and become Secretary of Defense, and it wasn't a close call. I enjoyed the House very much, but the chance to serve in the Defense Department in the executive branch, as contrasted with continuing to serve in the minority party in the House, was a lot more attractive, and I was happy to make the choice.
Was it an issue in that meeting that you hadn't served in the military?
I raised it with him as a possible objection. He'd already had some research done on it, and the fact is I was the 17th Secretary of Defense and the 4th one that had no prior military service, so it was not precedent setting in that regard. He didn't think it would be a problem, and obviously it wasn't.